So everyone freaks out about guns like the Sig Flux, and most of the videos are like, hey, this one has a stock or a brace. But what does that actually mean to increase performance versus a pistol? How do you extract the most performance? Since winning the Sig Flux Legion at the Sig Next event, I've been messing around with the Flux and have come away with its strengths and how to get the most out of it, and I'll share it with you. The Flux can definitely increase your capability, but there's probably some stuff you want to know about it. Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel. I'm David, and this is the Sig Flux Legion. It is a braced version of the Flux Raider. Now, I did a first shots video on the Raider when I first encountered it at the Sig Next event where I actually won the thing, but I was always curious, like, for somebody like me, does the Flux actually make a difference in how I shoot versus something like this? So I set out to try and understand whether I could actually shoot the Flux better than I could just the regular AXG Legion. So I did what I always do, and I took it to the range with a shot timer and tried to understand what was going on. But first, for the dads out there, I hope you keep crushing it, and let me honor you with this. What do you call a Frenchman who's attacked by a cat? Claude. So a video like this comparing a PDW like the Flux Legion to a regular pistol is going to greatly consider shooter skill. Now, I do need to put this on the table. I'm not bragging. I'm just giving you an idea where I fall in kind of the spectrum. And I've been competing with pistols for about the past 10, 11 years or so. I've got 5 or so master cards across IDPA and USPSA. I shoot at a pretty high level with a pistol. So in order for a gun like this to immediately kind of make a splash and make me get more out of it, it's probably going to take some work. Up to this point, I haven't done any serious training with anything that is a PCC or really a rifle beyond just like, that's cool, it's a rifle. That's pretty much all of my rifle shooting, by the way. So I did what I normally do and went to the range and put it on the timer. So on the range, I initially set up some of these Sig T300s. The T300s are a smart target that has like a Bluetooth target computer that hooks onto a specialized target that has conductive metallic paint, so that when you hit it with a metallic projectile like an FMJ bullet, it registers in the app via Bluetooth where the hit showed up, and it can give you your time. It's really useful for stuff like an indoor range, and it can just be used for regular training like, you know, USPSA type targets, but they also have games like Simon Says that you can do in there as well. Since it actually clocks the bullet impact and not the sound of the muzzle report, it doesn't matter how many guns are going off around you, it can still give you information on your hits on target. And if you use Bluetooth hearing protection like I do, the Axle X cores, and there's a link in the description of this video that can save you 15% on some Axle X cores. The Bluetooth connection will actually play the start tone in your ear pro so that you can hear the beep go off in a busy range. You don't have to hear it through your ear pro, it comes in through your ear pro, which is pretty cool. So thanks to Sig Connect for letting me play with the targets and sponsoring it. And what I was able to find using those T300 targets, just setting up a single target at various distances, shooting at 7 yards, I greatly favored the pistol. My performance was faster and the hits were more accurate with the pistol. At 15 yards, however, that's when the Flux started to draw level with the pistol. I could shoot it about as well as I could the pistol at 15 yards. Backing up to 25 yards, the Flux was much easier to connect with hits. And at this point, my technique with the Flux was absolute trash. We'll get there in a minute. And this is the first thing that I learned from shooting the Flux, is that when I'm shooting a pistol, basically the pistol is floating in space in front of my face with 2 shock absorbers that are my arms. The gun is completely disconnected from my breath and breathing. The orientation, because the height over bore doesn't so much matter. You basically get your hits where the dot is pointed. It's just on me whether or not I can stabilize the gun as I pull through the trigger to get the hit that I'm looking for. With the Flux, and all the rifle guys are going to laugh at me because this is incredibly self-evident, is that the gun is connected to your chest where you are breathing, so your breath influences how the gun moves. And because the Flux is so lightweight, you really do have to kind of steady your breathing in order to make precise shots at 25 yards. So thinking you can just put it on the shoulder, grip it, and rip it, yes, that's somewhat true, but not everything. The next thing that I learned is trying to approach the grip of the Flux. And guys, I was basically ignoring the fact that this is a brace and just shouldering it the whole time. So it's basically more like a PCC with an incredibly short pull. But here what I learned is that basically leaning into the gun with your shoulder and your front hand basically create the vise that stabilizes the gun. The dominant hand does basically nothing other than operate the controls and work the trigger. But that's not what I did. I tried to like push and pull and do all this weird stuff that just made the gun not track consistently. When I let go of all that and just did the self-evident thing of letting my body and my support hand create a vise, then the gun would settle out. But I wouldn't learn that till after this. Next, I set up a little mock stage and I ran it two ways. The first way I ran it was going to be kind of a more dynamic way of trying to stay in motion with the pistol, shooting on the move and stuff like that, because I wanted to see how the Flux would handle if you did, you know, run it truly like a pistol and try and shoot on the move and all that kind of stuff. What I found is that I was faster and more accurate with the pistol shooting it this way. Then I ran it again, taking the Flux and basically just running to the middle of the stage and shooting everything that you could see from the middle, which is what PCC shooters tend to like to do. What I found there is that I was still faster with the pistol, and that was largely due to the fact that I was not able to shot call well with the Flux. My time was faster because I was sending extra shots, and my dot tracking is just more squared away on the pistol than it was with the dot at that time. So shooting the mock stage also taught me that the trigger pull absolutely matters on this. Just because you think you have it squared away, it's still a lightweight gun with a relatively heavy trigger pull, and you do still have to address the trigger with care. You can't just slap it like you would on a pistol. The way that I grip pistols is my support hand is basically insulating me against really bad trigger pulls, so I'm able to keep the gun really, really steady and just absolutely disrespect the trigger. And it works at unreasonable distances, like even 20 yards, I can kind of get away with that on open targets and still get pretty good hits. That was not the case with this because I was, you know, trying to do my wonky push-pull grip. So what I ended up happening is the dot was tracking weird, and so I was not getting my follow-up shots to come back to the center of the A zones. Because the dot movement was so crazy, I was having a harder time calling my shots because like it wasn't just lifting straight up and down, it was like, wee, just kind of wherever it wanted to go. So with that kicks off a training montage. So in training, what I worked on largely was just shouldering the gun and getting a good grip, locking in with my support hand to the pocket on my shoulder. I can get a cheek weld if I want to get real high, or I can just kind of float the dot and bring my head down behind it. Both of those seem to work okay, but I tend to like to get a little bit higher with it more or less on my collarbone to get, you know, the dot up to my eye rather than dropping my head down behind the gun. It seems more consistent because I can kind of put it in that spot every time, and then the dot's exactly kind of where I'm looking. Then the next thing I learned is in target transition. So target transition is moving from one target to the next target. And what happens with a pistol is that people want to transition from just moving their arms kind of like that. The correct way is to actually move your legs. I don't know if you could see the difference there. I'm in a wheelie chair, so I just kind of moved the chair. But you get the idea. You really transition a gun by actually moving your legs and not through just pointing the gun from side to side. Turn the whole hips as you point from target to target. The nice thing about the Flux is it forces you to do that because the gun is glued to your torso and you have to kind of pivot and point your belt buckle at different stuff. And sort of the final fundamental, since I'd be shooting an IDPA match, and just a quick note, this gun is technically not legal with a brace in IDPA. You would have to SBR it and get a stock. Didn't know that until after the match because I didn't bother reading the rules and nobody knew that it wasn't a stock, so I guess I snuck that one by. But IDPA almost always has statutory reloads, and the nice thing about the Flux is the grip is absolutely massive and it reloads basically just like a pistol. So I was very pleasantly surprised that the reloads were actually quite easy. But where it gets complicated is IDPA also requires emergency reloads, and with the slide back like you see here, there's not really a good way to drop the slide. You can see I can't quite reach the slide release with that finger. I can't get my trigger finger back under the stock release bar to get on that one. So really it is just coming over the top and letting go, and there's no charging handle or anything like that. So I was gonna have to navigate that through basically racking the slide to put it back into battery. So at the IDPA match, I have a buddy named Daniel who is a master level shooter as well, and we usually run really close on time. Since Daniel was at the match, he was going to be the person that I was racing. Since pistols in IDPA only get 10 rounds, I was supposed to beat Daniel on each stage that required a reload by about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds, depending on how the reloading worked. So I know if I was making at least that time, then I would be, where I'm supposed to be, relative to a pistol. Daniel shoots a Bull Armory TAC Pro, and I've done a review on that gun as well, which you can check out. It's an absolutely ludicrous gun. So shooting the match, the actual short length of pull on the gun was actually kind of a benefit, to the point where initially I was thinking I'm gonna SBR this thing and probably get like a 3-inch stock or whatever. I'll probably just get an 1.5 inch stock for it, because the short length of pull made leaning around the barricades very easy. A lot of the hard leans, which normally frustrate PCC shooters, really weren't a problem with this little gun. And then maneuvering around the barricades, because it doesn't have a huge snout way out in front, you don't have to like suck it in and push it out and all that kind of stuff. It's just very easy to run around with. So the compact size of the Flux was very nice. I was happy to report that while shooting the match, the tracking of the dot was very good, and my dry fire absolutely paid off. I was getting a consistent weld with the gun into my shoulder, and the dot was just bouncing pretty much straight up and down. Now, I only had one live fire session in the week leading up to the match with the Flux, so I didn't have full confidence in exploiting the speed that the gun is capable of delivering, and it absolutely is. It can do like the PCC, like super fast, tight hit thing. It can do that. I just didn't have the confidence to pull it off because I haven't shot this gun a lot. So it definitely left some time on the table with respect to trigger speed. There was probably an easy 3 to 4 tenths just in splitting faster that I probably could have gotten away with. The other thing I realized really quickly, and because this is an indoor match, all the targets are between about 5 and 10 yards generally, and they like to partial them with like headshot only targets. And I realized very quickly that while the mechanical offset on this is about, I would say probably 3 inches, I would estimate, whereas on a pistol it is only, a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch maybe. Figuring out your hold for your mechanical offset at different distances is essential if you were to try and bring something like this into the shooting sports. I didn't have any of that practice really, so I just kind of, in the walkthrough figured out like I'm gonna hold it on the top of the head box for this one, I'm gonna hold it on the top of the 0 per for this one, and just kind of made it up as I went along, and generally it went okay. I ended up dropping 8 points over the course of the night, and almost all of those were on headshots where it missed. A couple of them were just where the dot kind of walked just outside the 0 zone, but generally accuracy was pretty good. But I definitely took longer and dropped more points on headshots than I probably would have a pistol, where offset isn't really a thing. There was one reload in the match, and I was happy to say that the reload went really well. It was an emergency reload due to a downloaded start, and sure enough, I didn't really have a good way to get the slide back into battery, so I just released it with my hand, and it went well. I was rewarded with somebody after I shot the stage coming up and saying, hey, that looked really cool, that reload was awesome. So I guess that's good. And before I share the final results, I do need to relate a mishap. I had to go to the bathroom during the match, and I happened to be the second to last shooter on a stage, so I missed the next stage brief. So stage 4 started with the first target. You were supposed to shoot it 4 times. I didn't bother reading the stage description, assumed it was just like the other stages where you shoot everything twice. So I ended up not shooting that target 2 times, and I ended up with a 3-second procedural penalty and 10 seconds of penalty time due to 2 what was accounted for as mics on the target. That basically tanked the match entirely. There's no way to win in a competitive match like this one was, with a 13-second hole to dig out of. I could have been perfect on points and still not won the match at that point. But all said and done, with adjusted scores, I ended up being about 9 seconds behind my buddy Daniel, but on raw time, I was about 9 seconds in front of Daniel. So my raw time was faster. He shot fewer points down. He only had 4 points down. I had 8 points down, and then I had my 13 seconds in penalty time. So what I observed about the Flux is, with just a very minimal amount of training, I was shooting it at nearly the level of fluency of a pistol, which I've been practicing on for nearly 10 years. Not this specific pistol, but pistols in general. I think it probably will give capability to people who don't have as much training on pistols, the compact maneuverability in close quarters, and I can imagine with like a riot shield, like there's probably a ton of really good applications for a gun like this as far as the military and law enforcement is concerned. Since it's a shooting sport, I wasn't able to use the speed load system and reload from the speed load at the front, which would have been super awesome. But because it is so lightweight, I think it does benefit from the added weight of something in the magazine speed load system. So if I had like a dummy mag that was weighted in the front part of the pistol and maybe something like a weapon mounted light, that would give me some more stability that I didn't quite have. That would help the gun kind of steady out of recoil faster. It would help me, you know, zero in on precise shots a little bit quicker. So I definitely would probably want to add something like a weapon mounted light to this bad boy and just kind of make it happen. But I was very intrigued with the power of the Flux. This is probably going to wind up as a home defense weapon for myself because you can have 60 rounds on tap pretty easily. It's small enough and light enough weight that, you know, my wife feels very comfortable handling it. And there's loads of rounds between the 230 round mags that it comes with. So I thought this was just kind of a meme, like range toy, but spending more time with it, I really began to appreciate the strength of what a platform like this can offer. I want to continue to shoot this and learn how to exploit it more because I can definitely see the power in it. It really has kind of opened a new door, realizing just how trash I am with kind of shoulder mounted weapons. I do want to pick up like a PCC and start to check out some PCC. Nationals is coming up in October, and I figure after Nationals I can get some time in with a PCC and just figure out what that's all like. You can watch my first shots video on the Flux here. As always, I appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.